What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Ysn Power Hour, proudly powered by our friends at Toyota. Warren DJ Yoakley with you. Very excited to be with you today. It is a very special day, a very exciting day for so many different reasons, and it is the 100% return of the Ysn Power Hour. You saw Running Point make its triumphant return earlier today with Anthony Hartwig off of this spring break that we were able to have, and to chase a lot of these teams down to Myrtle Beach, and have conversations with them to get to know the parents, the players, the coaches a little bit more personally than we already do. It's one of my favorite weeks of the entire year, and it was capped off by the 656-mile journey back from Myrtle Beach to the front porch here in the unofficial place for YSN, DJ Yoakley's very own basement, where it all started, ladies and gentlemen. We return to it today. Tomorrow, I'm hoping we're back at athletics. Hoping we're back at athletics and back to business per usual here on YSN, but there is a lot to recap today. We've got a special guest joining us at 3:30, a guy that is going to be able to recap, and a lot of people asking me throughout the last week what today was going to be like, because for those who don't know, yes, sports, my number one love, my absolute number one love. I'm blessed to be able to do this day in, day out, with my friends, with my coworkers, with my team. My wife, very supportive, obviously, of what we do here. My kids are excited about it. But there's one thing other than sports, and it's a component. It's a component, a leg of the spider, if you will, that I have loved for my entire life. Before I even loved baseball, and you guys know how much I love baseball. Go Pirates. Before I even loved baseball, there was one thing that was embedded in my DNA that caught my eye that I never was able to take my eye off of. Ladies and gentlemen, this past weekend was WrestleMania. And there's a lot of you out there that are like, oh gosh, a bunch of guys in tight pants dancing with each other, choreographed techniques. When you're talking about WrestleMania, when you're talking about professional wrestling, when you're talking about sports entertainment, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there would be no YSN. There would probably be a lot less of the entertainment value in a lot of our sports if it wasn't for stuff like this, right? If it wasn't for WWE, if it wasn't for essentially what we were able to see on full display this weekend, and wrestling's taken a long hiatus. And my dad told me a long time ago that professional wrestling is very secular. Secular? It goes in cycles. I think it's secular. When I was born, 1985, the height of Hulkamania, right? The first ever WrestleMania was cast. And then it goes into that was the golden era. Then it goes into the Attitude Era when I was about 7th, 8th grade. And here I am, 39 years old, and wrestling, ladies and gentlemen, back and better than ever. Better than ever. And the story has been finished. Cody Rhodes wins last night in one of the greatest main events in wrestling history, and puts wrestling right back on the map. I mean, the champions, the weekend that was WrestleMania was incredible. Ty Bartell will be with us at 3:30. He was there. Ty was there on Saturday, Sunday, Friday. He was at Wrestling WWE World, I think they're calling it. He made the trip home, and he's going to join us at 3:30. I'm so excited to talk to Ty about it. But this guy is back. It's back. The WWE title is back. I can display it proudly. Not that I didn't before, but I can display it proudly and be excited about it. Um, I'm excited. I'm overly excited about WWE. We're not going to make this all about WWE, but we're going to probably incorporate a little bit more of that into our segments, because it is part of pop culture. It is part of what we do here. Not necessarily at YSN, but incorporate some other things into it. And we'll break that bad boy back out whenever we talk to Ty Bartell here in about 20 minutes or so. What a weekend. What a weekend. What a week it was last week in Myrtle Beach. Being able to see teams like Austintown Fitch, teams like South Range, teams like Canfield, the baseball programs of Canfield and South Range, St. John, Austintown Fitch. What a great treat it was. South Range as well. What a great treat it was to go down there, especially when the weather up here was absolutely brutal from what we understand. I mean, not getting in more than a handful of games throughout the entire week, that is tough. That's very tough to swallow. We've had the debate about turf versus natural grass. We've had, the cost associated with that, what goes into it. It didn't sound like it mattered. It didn't sound like it mattered at all. Whether you had turf, whether you had ice, whether you had grass, you could, if it didn't have heaters on it and it didn't have you didn't have a helicopter chopping over top of it, drying it out, you weren't playing for the most part. So what I can tell you is I'm very, very humbled and grateful that we were able to make the trip down to Myrtle Beach and get games in and allow you to watch games if you made the trip or not. It really is. We talk about it all the time. I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea to take these trips to Tennessee, to Florida, to South Carolina, to all these Arizona. We know a team went there. I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not always in the budget, so to speak. But what I can tell you is it's absolutely worth it. We saw cancellations on Wednesday of last week because of weather, but that was really it. Every other day was absolutely perfect weather. And even South Range got the game in on Wednesday, even though they probably didn't necessarily like the final score. Their only loss on the season, their only loss down there, obviously. But they got the game in. They got the reps in. And they learned a little themselves that day. And that's the thing about Myrtle Beach is a lot of it, not just Myrtle Beach, it's everywhere. You go down to these places, you play some of the best competition because you're playing teams that want to compete. They want to play. They want to get games in. That's why you're seeing a lot of these teams from different parts of the nation coming together to play these contests because a lot of times you're not getting games in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in West Virginia, in some of these states up north, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky. You're not getting these games in, so you go to a little bit of a better pasture, so to speak, to play these games, and obviously you pay some money to do it, but you also have the experience when you come back, and I think that to me is probably a big part of it because I think when you look at the teams that have gone down there consistently for the last handful of years, 5 years, let's say, you're talking about teams like, again, South Range, Canfield, Austintown Fitch, especially in softball. Tell me the teams that have been more successful than those three teams over the last 5 years, all of which have had state championship runs in the last 5 years. With, of course, Austintown Fitch bringing home the championship last year. You've got to be able to put your team in a position to get games in. I don't know that teams with 11 games going into May are necessarily going to be competitive when it comes to getting into June. because you're going to have to blow through your arms. You're going to have to, your legs are tired. Everything's tired when you finally get to that postseason run. Think about basketball, how the schedule is built and prepared. And, these teams are having better understandings of, okay, we need to make sure that we're only having one game prior to our playoff run. And then we can schedule scrimmages or exhibitions during our run if we have a few extra days off and more than we'd like. That's what these baseball and softball teams are figuring out is how do we get more games in on the front end and then build off the back? Or just get games more consistently throughout this season, as opposed to you get 3 games in May, or 3 games in April, and then you've got 19 games in May. Especially in baseball, your pitching is toast. It is absolutely toast. And if you're doing the same thing in softball, that's a lot of innings. Not just on pitching, on catching, on your defense. You're fatigued by the time you go into the postseason, and that's what it's all about. Like, that's great that you can rack up 11 wins during the season, or 20 wins during the season, or 22 wins during the season. That's fantastic. But what does it matter if you're going out in the first round of the playoffs? Yeah, you win your league title, your conference title. Fantastic. That's great. And that's not something that should be poo-pooed on. And I'm not trying to do that. But what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to win a state championship. We've talked about that for as long as YSN's been around, especially in baseball and softball. Success is bred, and we had the conversation with Gary Niddle at Canfield. There's a lot of people that deem success based on how many state championships you have, or if you do indeed have a state title in baseball or softball, because the caliber, and I might be alone on this. I don't think I am. The caliber of baseball and softball in this area, in this region of the state of Ohio, is held to a higher standard than any other sport. Any other sport. You win a district championship in football, people will celebrate you. You win a district championship in volleyball, people will celebrate you. In basketball, celebration. Track, celebration. Baseball, softball, they don't. It's not the same. Go back and think about the last district champion that was actually celebrated. I don't know that they exist. Unless there was a team that absolutely was not supposed to win it at all, that went through some upset specials. They don't exist. District championships are not the same in baseball and softball as they are in every other sport in this region. Because in this region, if you're winning a district championship, we expect you to win a regional. In this region, if you win a regional championship, we expect you to bring home a state. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Nobody is surprised anymore in this region when we have teams consistently playing in state championship and state semifinal games. We're not surprised. It's expected. It is expected. And y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that I'm standing in the wrong line during the checkout. I really think that expectations are one of our teams will be in the state semifinal game every single year, if not multiple teams Remember last year, Austin Town Fitch and Canfield. This is how it goes. This is who we are. I really think we're going to be in the same boat again this year. I really do. We've got some great baseball teams around here as well. Holy cow, do we have some great baseball that's being played. Look at what is happening with teams that are playing. You've got kids that are coming out of their shell. No pun intended. Down in Myrtle Beach. Tyson Terajak is an absolute stallion. He is an absolute baller. And he's getting it done because he's getting the reps. If he's not down there, we're talking about hitting cage bombs. We're talking about hitting batting practice inside, which there's nothing wrong with that, except for we're just robbed of how lucky we truly are to see a young man like him let loose. Connor Brogan doesn't get to pitch the gem that he pitches down in Myrtle Beach. Then you look at what Tyler Wardle is doing. I mean, possibly the most clutch hitter in the entire area. You look at that across the board in South Range. You look at what Boardman is doing down in Florida. One of the youngest teams between Boardman and Cardinal Mooney, two of the youngest teams in our area that are set to do special things moving forward. Teams have to go down south this time of year. Well, we can't give up our Easter, can't give up our spring break. You kidding me? No, you have to. If you want to be successful, you have to sacrifice your spring break to go down south and play. Whether that's Tennessee, Florida, Myrtle Beach, wherever. Arizona. Hell, go to California. Go to Texas. Go somewhere. Just get reps in. Get the playing time in. Get the PT that you need to take that next step. But get that step quicker than others. You may not think it pays dividends, but I promise you it does. And it's maybe not the first year. Maybe it's the second year. What do they always say about great football teams? You look at the Springfield run during the Bo Brungart era. You look at South Range. You look at Kirtland. You look at teams like Perry. And what happens? Matsland. Hoban. What do we say about these teams that are playing 13, 14, 15, 16 games a year in football? The next year, those freshmen are essentially juniors because they've already played 16 games. They have 16 games worth of experience, which typically is going to take a freshman 2 years to get to that point. And it took them 1. So going and getting experience, and people can sit there and say, hey, now let's just play this back. We didn't have any snow. We didn't have any. You never know what the weather's going to be up here. No, you don't, but I'm guessing the weather's still going to be a little bit better down in Myrtle Beach, down in Cocoa Beach, down in Pigeon Forge, down in Arizona. Anywhere you go south, the weather has a way better chance of being better suited to play a diamond sport. That's why when push comes to shove, these teams that are getting games in, whether they be 5 innings or otherwise, come late May, early June, are still playing because they got their games in. They're ready to go. They're prepared. They've been battle tested. Iron has sharpened iron from that scenario. And I think that's what we're missing here. These athletic directors, these communities, these schools, these districts, these families are not playing around. They're getting better because there's better data that shows if you play games when you're supposed to, as opposed to getting rained out consistently for a week, 10 days, 15 days, and playing once every 15 days, you're going to be better. The muscle memory is going to get there quicker. The hand-eye coordination is going to get back. It's like riding a bike. Problem is most of the bikes here in Northeast Ohio are in the garage for 2 weeks at a time. I'm not advocating. I'm obviously not being paid by anybody in Myrtle Beach or Cocoa Beach or Pigeon Forge or wherever. But what I'm telling you is let's think about this cerebrally from a standpoint of, do we want to be competitive? Then we're going to have to sacrifice. I heard a conversation, I want to say it was the first couple of days that we were down there, and they asked me my opinion and you know, why should teams have to give up? Why should families have to give up their Easter to come down and play spring sports? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. And this is from a Division III athlete's perspective, former Division III athlete's perspective. You're going to have to give up and sacrifice a lot if you want to play at the next level. A lot. And it's not just your holidays. Your spring break, gone if you're a baseball or softball player. Track athlete, gone. See ya. Bye. Because why? Because you're going somewhere with your team that you're going to play baseball, you're going to play softball, you're going to run track, you're going to be in the field. Spring sports, sorry about it. But then you have winter sports. You're giving up your Christmas a lot of times because you're traveling with your team for 4, 5, 6 years. If you're completing your education and you make a full run, let's say, with a red shirt here and a red shirt there, and here quack, there quack, everywhere quack, quack. It's a situation that the sacrifice is being made. And we've talked for the last 7.5 years about everything coming down a notch, right? Everything that used to happen professionally is now happening in college sports. Everything that used to happen in college sports is now happening in high school sports, and high school sports, and in middle school sports, and amateur sports. Folks, you just have to understand. You have to understand that there's going to be a sacrifice that has to be made. Now, nobody's complaining about the sacrifice of giving up their Saturdays and Sundays for AAU and for travel ball and for this and that because, hey, this makes my son or this makes my daughter better. They only complain when it comes down to schools, and I don't think that's fair. And while there's a lot of people that will tell you, that will advocate for travel ball, AAU, and I'm one of them, I think that it's great, but I also think there's a time and a place for it. And they're going to sell you because they do the marketing themselves, and they're a lot smaller, right? They don't have to control necessarily 400, 500 kids. They've got to control their team or their organization of 20. And it's a lot easier marketing-wise to pivot, right? It's like a speedboat and the Titanic. If you're in a speedboat, you can get out of the way of the iceberg. If you're a Titanic, it takes you a little bit different of a course. You got to be on your game. You got to be able to see that well ahead of time and start your shift. It's the same way with schools being the bigger ship and a speedboat being the AAU, travel ball, what have you. They're able to maneuver quickly. Hey, you know what? I saw this down here in you know, this camp or this tournament, wherever, we're going to go. Well, we can't go. Well, okay, that's fine. Somebody will just take your spot. That's just how it goes. You can't do that in a school because there's levels to it. There's school board and coach and athletic director and principal and schoolwork and stuff like that. You think that your coach of AAU or your coach of travel ball gives two hoots about if you have got an essay due or you've got a test to take? Or no, they don't care. They care about your batting average, your on base percentage. They care. That's what they care about. They could give two craps about what you're doing in school. Two different worlds we're living in. What I'm telling you is, if these schools want to be competitive and these schools want to take it to the next level, and ultimately, if these schools want to compete for state championships, they've got to start playing games. They have to start playing games on a more regular basis in the springtime, taking these trips, using fundraisers, doing all the things that they have to do, that these other schools already do, that they're getting the leg up on the other teams when they're playing in June in the state semifinals and the state championship. Just come to grips with it. Sacrifices are going to have to be made no matter which. Would you rather sacrifice now and give up, let's say, a week and some funds and going out and knocking on doors and things of that nature, essentially to just be able to play games at that time? Or do you want to sacrifice and not play games in June? You're going to sacrifice one or the other. I don't know many teams that are able to continue to play softball, baseball into the state semis, the state finals, without going on some of these trips. I would like to have that data in front of me to be able to prove it, but I'm pretty sure that many of them, if not all of them, are competing and playing on these trips during the Easter. Dave Balestrino, we're going to get to this question in just a minute. We're going to take a break. Ty Bartell joins me when we return on the YSN Power Hour. Talk about a little bit of WrestleMania here on the YSN Power Hour. When we come back right after this great opportunity to support our friends over at Toyota of Warren. Back after this.
We believe expectations are made to be exceeded. At the new Toyota of Warren, it's about more than just getting a great deal. It's about service you can count on and a friendship you can trust. Year after year, we've done what we do best. We've gone the extra mile so you could too. Because we know it's just not about buying a new car. It's the start of a new adventure. Toyota of Warren, driven by you.
It means the world to me to know that what we're doing is impacting people. And whether it's simply, I got to watch my son or daughter when I was out of town, or we just love watching YSN. We love what you do for our son or daughter. So whenever someone says thank you or someone is appreciative of what we're doing, it tells me everyone at YSN is doing what we initially set out to do, which is shine a light on these athletes and help them kind of promote themselves. My name is Anthony Hartwig, and my sports network is your sports network.
Welcome back to the YSN Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. It is the final boss. Over the last week, we've been down to Myrtle Beach, Ty Bartell busting his ass every single day, getting to Austintown Fitch games, but he had one thing in the back of his mind the entire time. Ladies and gentlemen, our own on-the-ground reporter / lover of all wrestling drove from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, all the way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up and a big welcome to Ty Bartell. What's up there, WrestleMania Ty?
Not much, DJ, not much. Just started rolling in this morning, too. We made an all-night trip from Philadelphia back to good old Northeast Ohio, so we're just settling back into home life now.
Well, we talked about the sacrifices that had to be made in order to get championship gold and to accomplish your dreams. And Ty, as the final boss would say, Mama Rose, look at you now. Look at you now. look at you, my friend. You're able to pull off an unbelievable spectacle, doing what you love, and then ultimately going and checking the box on the bucket list of all bucket lists and seeing possibly, if not I mean, inevitably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You're able to live that. Walk me through kind of the arrival through the departure of your time in Philly.
Well, it's like it's funny because like I've been to Philly before too, and it's like when you roll in, you see the traffic. It's lined up even getting into the city days before the event, and then like you walk out. There's wrestling shirts everywhere. It's literally it becomes the capital of wrestling for forever for that weekend, wherever WrestleMania moves year to year, because you walk out and there's just thousands of wrestling fans just walking the streets of Philly. And you could see where this is starting to trend in the entertainment business too, because so much business comes to the city of Philadelphia and you could just see it by walking out on the streets. There's lines at all the businesses, lines at the food places. I mean, so much business, so many people come huddled to wherever WrestleMania takes place, and just going in there was crazy, just witnessing that atmosphere and then being in the event itself. I mean, when you got 70,000 people that are just wrestling diehards too, and reacting to every little move, every little punch too, and they've been wrestling fans for 10 years and worldwide audiences too. I had a guy that was from Perth, Australia, sitting next to me. I had a guy from Dubai that was behind me. Like, I mean, there's people from all over the world that come and witness this too. It really is what they say, the Super Bowl of professional wrestling.
That's all well and good, Ty. But at the end of the day, this is America. This is still our sport. This is professional wrestling. And no matter how many cultures are able to observe it, I still feel like good old red, white, and blue is always going to be waving. We sing God Bless America at the beginning, naturally. For you, when you arrive on Friday, you go to WWE World, as they call it. What was that like? I mean, that's when you get to kind of meet and get a little bit closer to some of the wrestlers. We saw some pictures around from other people on my timeline that were able to celebrate the event. What did you guys do on Friday to kind of pass the time and to kind of take in the sights and scenes?
Well, you roll in, you have to get your credentials and everything too. And then I mean, it's crazy because I mean, you go in and they got the whole store too, but they have all these like fan interactive photo op opportunities as well. They got like the ring set up for you too. You got like the big sign with like the Rock as well. There's wrestlers that come through these events as well too, that you can get in line and get pictures with too. So it's really one of the highest interactive like fan events that you could have too. If you really like, if you're a fan of wrestling, I highly recommend, once in a lifetime, you got to check it out too, just because the level of interactivity that you have too with everything, it really is unbelievable.
What was some of the things that you're going to take cherished memories back? Well, I guess you're already back, but the rest of your days, and as a wrestling fan, things that you'll never be able to replicate.
I mean, I think just honestly being able to sit down to and witness that stage too, and then once the event starts, you hear the entrances too, and then you hear the fans reacting to the entrances as well, and these larger than life characters become right there center stage, right? I honestly think just like watching this WrestleMania too, and just like the way it ended, right? Because I've been following the whole Bloodline story the last few years, so I think the way they kind of culminated it too, and with like Triple H taking over creative aspect wise of WWE, they were calling it kind of like the Renaissance era right now, and I think it's well due, just because you watch the weekly programming, you watch the story build to this. I mean, this Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns, it's kind of like the Rocky tale too, that they were kind of trying to tell. I feel like going into it with him losing last year, building up to this, and then if you follow him in his AEW career, I like how everything kind of blurs the lines within other wrestling companies too, and it all kind of becomes one.
So I guess my question to you, when you sat down in your seats last night, I mean, it was action jam packed uh, from the World Championship kickoff. I mean, being the money in the bank was cashed in. Damian Priest able to walk away with the World Championship after Drew McIntyre gets it. For you, Ty, did you ever sit down? And my biggest question to you as part of this two-parter was, did you were you a Cody crybaby, or did you acknowledge your tribal chief?
So we did a little bit of standing too. It was cold in that stadium those 2 days. So we were huddled up. We had the layers on. We had the blanket too. We got plenty of the WrestleMania merch to keep us warm because we needed it, man. The first night was a lot colder than the second night, but the second night, once that sun goes down, man, it gets pretty chilly. No, I was happy for Cody to finish the story. I really love the Bloodline story, but I think it's been something that's kind of it's evolved, and I think it's kind of evolved past the championship. I don't think the Bloodline story is done yet. I think Roman has some unfinished business with The Rock that's going to be tend to, or I think there's going to be a storyline built between the two of them. But I was happy for Cody too. I mean, the whole rallying cry of finish the story, I think that's kind of taken over not just wrestling culture, but culture in general. You see so many people with that tagline, finish the story, right? And all of us figuratively have our own story that we're trying to finish, right? And he's one of those guys I feel like a lot of people can see kind of themselves in, relate to a little bit, right? About trying to finish their story and coming back from maybe the depths of despair, the failure of last year, to crawl all the way back to this year and get it done too. I understand it's all scripted. I understand that it's all storytelling too, but I
Whoa,
mean, just
whoa,
like a
whoa,
good
whoa,
movie.
whoa, whoa, whoa. let's not knock on that door yet.
Yeah.
It's not scripted. It's just it's hyperbole is what that is.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Ty. Come on.
No, it was a really incredible spectacle event too. And watching, honestly, Cody Rhodes' entrance, like red, white, and blue, donning the entire stadium like WrestleMania. The letters are lit up red, white, and blue. I looked over to my wife. I'm like, this is like really cool right now. Just his entrance alone too, and just seeing the good old red, white, and blue all around Lincoln Financial Stadium was really cool.
All right. So did you do the oh,
I feel like
when it was time?
I feel like you got to, right? You have to give it in, because I mean that's the whole stadium too. It's all in unison. They get loud and they get proud for it too. My wife was a big Randy Orton fan, so she was giving it for that triple threat match too. But night two was a great event, from the jump to all the way to the finish. Like, it felt nonstop, one after another.
Did you feel? I mean, we've seen WrestleManias before. It was kind of the women's revolution, so to speak, where it was the all women's main event, and it didn't feel like that was necessarily on display. This WrestleMania to me felt like it was a lot more authentic. There was nothing really forced. You mentioned obviously the Bloodline story, and it's running its course, and everybody kind of being able to relate to Cody Rhodes and finishing their own story, which I think, Ty, that's a great dynamic. That's such a great analysis of that. But for you, I was very jealous, at the same time entertained, because that main event, we will talk about that main event for the rest of our, especially you being there. You'll talk about that for the rest of your life. I'll talk about it for the rest of mine. Laying in bed, obviously, after the 660 or 656-mile journey back from Myrtle Beach to East Palestine, Ohio, just to watch WrestleMania on my own TV. The main event, dude. I mean, from the obviously Bloodline rules, which nobody really understood what it meant. You just knew that everybody was going to interfere. You just didn't know anybody was going to come out for Cody. And then when John Cena comes out for Cody, and then The Undertaker comes for Cody. Don't forget Seth Rollins coming back, be the for Cody Rhodes. For you, what was the? I mean, you almost had to have a going, being in that atmosphere with 72,000 people by your side, taking in all the sights. What was it like for you?
I mean, you knew when they kind of set aside like an hour for that main event, something crazy was going to happen. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I said. I was like, we can't miss a minute of this too. And just like I said, man, the energy of just like every entrance and everything. And they kind of tied in the story of like Solo took out John earlier in the year, so Cena comes back and gets the revenge. I love the long-term storytelling. I love the little tie-ins that you have to pay attention to. If you watch the weekly programming now, you really got to pay attention to the stuff happening in the background too, because there's little stories being told there. And I think what Paul Levesque Triple H is doing creatively now with wrestling and calling it the Renaissance era, we're seeing that kind of attitude era spike, I think, in wrestling now. And it felt like one of those old Stone Cold and Rock main events too, where you never know if maybe the corporation was getting the upper hand too. When they made it no disqualification, you knew Gerald Briscoe and then we're in the corner of whoever the corporate champion was, right? With the Rock at the time. I love the storytelling of that now too, what they're doing with wrestling and making wrestling, I feel like, cool and relevant again to all ages as well, and not just catering maybe to the PG crowd that you've seen over the last kind of decade or so.
And I think one of the things that I appreciate about you more than anything, I mean, obviously you're a great storyteller. You do great write-ups. You do all that, but your ability to capture the sports entertainment side of wrestling and appreciate that side and bring it into what we do at YSN, I think it's what makes such great announcers, because the majority of us here at YSN are fans of WWE or some type of professional wrestling. So for you, when you're watching WWE, when you're watching and you're growing up with the WWE, because you and I, even though that I feel we're close in age, there's an age gap. I mean, there's a 15, 17-year age gap. I'm rooting for Hulk Hogan and you're rooting for John Cena. That's two different ages of gaps, I guess, from that standpoint. What's your kind of take on what you kind of pluck from sports entertainment and put into what we do here at YSN?
Yeah, I tell everybody all the time, like, a lot of my announcing comes from like my appreciation of wrestling, like watching Jim Ross, watching Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler, and just like you hear the excitement. Watch a Jim Ross commentary match from the 90s, early 2000s, man, and like hear the energy in his voice, hear the hyperbole, hear the metaphors, the similes that he utilizes when announcing too. And I try to take that and bring that to the forefront, because there's one thing too, and I will say, watching wrestling live, and I've seen plenty of pay-per-views live, the one thing that is always missing watching it live is that commentary too. You do miss hearing that little bit of commentary, because it adds to the experience, as any good commentator does. And I think that's the one thing I really learned from wrestling, because I've heard bad commentators in wrestling, I've heard good ones, and a great commentator can make a good match feel even greater, larger than life too, when they're they're jumping out of their seats excited. Like Pat McAfee is another great example of a commentator in wrestling, as someone that just gets hype, gives you the energy too, and he brings the show, the entertainment value to it, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Sports in the high school realm and what we do, they tell their own story, right? They most of the time tell their own story with rivalries and stuff, but maybe people don't appreciate that story as much. We got to kind of bring that to the forefront. We got to tell the story in maybe a different light to pop that intrigue too, to show people, hey, this is why this is a little bit more interesting too. This rivalry, right? We use that word rivalry in our thing a lot too. We try to build these rivalries among schools, obviously all friendly rivalries, but you bring that kind of entertainment value to high school sports, because it exists there as well. Anything can be a story if you have a good storyteller kind of painting the picture around it.
I mean, I couldn't put any more perfect myself, Ty. For you, I mean, you made that trip. We kind of alluded to it, from Myrtle Beach to Philly. Let's take it back to Myrtle Beach for a second. Obviously, you know, you got Wednesday was rained out for you, but you had a lot of time to talk with Steve Ward and the families, the community of Austintown, and obviously the Fitch softball team. There's an appreciation. I mean, and we don't take this lightly. The bond with us and Fitch, and you being a graduate of Austintown Fitch, is something we're very proud of. But you had a chance to go out Wednesday night, I think, with the softball team to dinner. For you, you get a lot of those conversations firsthand, and like you said, it's great to watch these games. It's great to watch these matches, but there's something missing when you're watching it live, that families actually go back and watch our games because they want to hear the commentary, how we thought things were going at that certain time. What were some of the conversations, if you would, that you had on Wednesday that you were so excited and so proud to go out with Steve Ward in the families of Austintown Fitch softball?
It's always, I think, good when you get to talk with Coach Ward and be able to kind of pick his coaching brain a little bit more one on one too, and what they're trying to build and what they're trying to do over there in Austin Town. And when you're talking with the kids too, and just I think getting to know the kids a little bit more on a personal level. And you talk about me being like genuinely excited, and a lot of people ask like, do I muster it up too? Is it all fake? It's all genuine excitement when I see what these kids do, and it's because you build these relationships with these kids, and you got to know them a little bit on those personal levels. You ask them, the things that they like doing too, what their actual hobbies are outside of softball too. Learn the person too. Person over player is a big thing that Coach Ward is put an emphasis on over at Austintown Fitch. And that's one thing too. We here at YSN take value in the person before the player too, because it makes rooting for the player that much stronger when you know the kind of person and the story that they themselves are telling each and every time they step out on the court or the field.
And I think that's important because, it's hard to put into context until you see something happen at like the global level. So, for instance, I saw last night. I'm not sure if you did, if you've had to have a chance to run back on kind of the Peacock experience of
Yeah.
what happened last night, but Cody wins the title. He finishes the story, and everybody comes out of the locker room, right, and celebrates with him because they know Cody, the person. They cleared out the locker room, so to speak, but they did that on their own. That wasn't scripted into it. Michael Cole, who's been doing commentary and working with the WWE for the last 27 years, was caught on camera getting emotional and crying and getting a hug from Cody Rhodes and all that stuff because he knew the boy, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, 38 years old, just a few months younger than I am, winning his first ever in his family, mind you, WWE Undisputed Championships world title for all intents and purposes. Ty, for you, I know it was tough for you to not be able to have that moment last year to call the Austintown Fitch state championship because you had prior obligations and going to work, and you drove all the way down and then all the way back to work. For you, is it, and I don't want to make this about you, but is it your turn to finish your story? Is that something you talked about with Coach Ward and how much you'd love to be able to call their championship this time around?
I love following the Falcon story and telling whatever the story is going to be. And I mean, obviously, I think going into this year, they are going to be heavy favorites again, but we still know the world of sports and anything can happen too. We still got unwritten chapters in this particular story. But the one thing I will say, I would be lying to say, I'm pretty excited when I looked at the schedule, looked when the scrappers start, looked when softball season ends, and know that there's no conflict there to know that I can maybe be the one behind the final chapter or talking behind the final chapter of this particular year's story. But there's still chapters to be written, and there's still plenty of games to go this season. And as Coach Ward and the rest of the Falcon softball team like to say, we don't want to look too far ahead. So we'll take it one game at a time. But should that time come and we're talking final chapter, I think it would be awesome to be the voice behind writing that final chapter.
Final question for you is, as I alluded to before you jumped on here, we jumped into the all WWE talk. For you, you noticed as well as I did, and Anthony does it as well. Sam got a chance to kind of experience it as we were down in Myrtle Beach. These teams that take these journeys, these trips down south, they have a leg up, I think, later on in the season because they're not trying to play catch up and kind of chase their tail a little bit towards the end of the season. What makes these teams that go down south, whether it be Myrtle or Pigeon Forge or Cocoa Beach or Orlando or wherever it may be, what makes these teams so special? What gives them an advantage, an edge as they look to really start finishing their story?
I think it just goes back to maybe putting yourself in situations you're not necessarily always comfortable with, so that way nothing surprises you down the road. And I think a lot of these teams, it's making that long trek. Some of these first pitches are 8 in the morning, so that means these girls are getting up realistically around 6:30 too, getting ready, getting to the field, and getting ready for a first pitch at 8 in the morning. You talk about putting yourself in not everyday kind of situations too that you're going to see over the course of a season, but you might see down in the state title picture and the regional picture too, with start times too, and competition that you're going to get down there that you're not going to always find locally too. I mean, you have to literally go to these type of places to get your opponents from West Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Kentucky. Like, I mean, they all center to these certain spots. And like you said, just being able to get these games in. I mean, these teams, we had one rain out day on Wednesday, like we talked about, but these teams were able to get games in while we were having torrential downpours up here in Northeast Ohio that entire week. So we were the only show in town, it felt like, I think, for a couple of days here on the network down in Myrtle. I mean, that's a leg up in competition in there because there's nothing like experience. What's that old Loki saying, right? Right? Experience is experience. Doesn't matter what it is or the competition. You need to be able to get games in to be able to just get that game feel. Practice can only do so much. You need to be able to get those full 7 innings in, 5 innings in if it's a shortened game, right? Get your 15 outs and get the W on the scoreboard.
Ty Bartell, can't thank you enough. I know it's short notice jumping on today and you're running on very low sleep, so go get that rest. We appreciate you chasing the American nightmare so you can chase your American dream. Ty, thanks so much for joining us today, buddy.
Thank you for always having me, DJ. Let's go. Look forward to another strong week here on the network.
You got it, buddy. Take care. Ty Bartell, a legend, many, many, many times over. Thanks so much to him for spending some time with us today. We're going to get to our Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark here in just a moment. But to pop up, I want to bring up the comment for Dave Balestrino. Any thoughts on Mercyhurst moving from D2 to D1? That kind of leads us right into the Spark, brought to you by Joe Dickey Electric. Visit them today at dickieelectric.com. Everything electric. Make sure that you head to our friends over at Joe Dickey. All right, one more time. Let's get to that comment. Dave Balestrino, and almost as if we were colluding on this together. Any thoughts on Mercyhurst moving from D2 to D1? Yes, I do. And I think it's a great, great, great opportunity because in today's world of, and we've talked about it many times. In today's world of my son, my daughter's a D1 athlete, Mercyhurst, I think, did a duty to the present, future, and believe it or not, the past student athletes that have played for that particular institute. I think that Mercyhurst is doing this for many reasons, but the big one is they're going to be able to utilize and capture some of the maybe fringe D1, D2 players or fringe D1, D3 players, and they're going to compete. And I think that for me, and I don't know all the metrics on what they're trying to do, what conference they're going to join, if they join a conference. But I think this gives them the ability to catch a lot of the local athletes that are living that dream, right? Are chasing their dream, are finishing, and I know I've said it a lot today, finishing their story. I think there's consequences to this. I think there's a lot of pros to this as well. I think that this is a great thing overall. I think that there's a lot of buildup in this. I think that it's been a quiet release because maybe they want to dip their toe in the water and see kind of how things go. And I know that there's a little bit of a transition period anytime that you change divisions. I know that was different, going from where I went to school in Westminster from NAIA to NCAA Division III. The school wasn't eligible for any postseason championships, or even conference championships until all those scholarship athletes were out the door. So I guess my thing is, I believe, and I'm not trying to speak out of both sides of my mouth here, I believe it's going to be a great experience for student athletes. It's going to give them one more opportunity to play Division One sports than previously last week, right? Um, but I also think that the competition level is going to be different as well. And until they land into a conference, if they already have, I don't know. Again, I don't. This is the first time I've really been able to wrap my arms around this. So I'm kind of thinking out loud and talking out loud here. As Dave says, they're joining a conference. I forget which one. Yeah. So yeah, maybe they'll stand a chance in that conference then, Dave. I don't know. If it's not one that you and I, so luckily it's not the Big Ten, or the whatever, the Big East, the ACC. It's nothing like that. So that's good news, because that would have been rough skating. But at the end of the day, it's a situation where I think that gives our athletes locally, hopefully locally, with a lot of local ties, and obviously, it's not far from home. It gives our student athletes an opportunity to play Division One and live out their dream and finish their story. But again, D1 is different. Division One sports is different than anybody could even fathom until you play it or until you see it in a very close setting. And it's what some of our plans here at YSN are built on, is allowing those families to understand it before they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars, or they're investing valuable time in that small window of opportunity that they get as a student athlete. I think there's good and bad. I think there's pros and cons. I think there's yin and yang. I think there's a lot that goes into it. And unfortunately, there's no definite answer. There's no clean, crisp answer to saying, hey, it's a great move for everybody. I think it's a good move for Mercyhurst. I think it's going to be a good move for a lot of our student athletes, who want to try and live out their dreams. And those that are confident, and fringe players, I think, and hopefully in the future, it's solid D1 athletes that are playing. But I think that Mercyhurst as a business sees an opportunity, and they're jumping at it, and I wish them the best. And I think it's a great opportunity for them. And again, I think there's a lot of people that can benefit from this, especially our student athletes, and especially that these student athletes that are looking for a great education at Mercyhurst, because that's all I've heard about is the education aspect of it. Mercyhurst is built on, and I was kind of surprised with the announcement, but at that same time, my goodness, does it bring a lot of opportunity right to their front door. So we'll see how this goes. I'm excited for it. Again, to be able to have another D1 school here close to home, that our players, our student athletes can look at and say, hey, maybe that's my future home for the next 4, 5, 6 years. Great opportunity. I would never, ever, ever turn it away, especially here for local and regional standouts. I mean, it's a great opportunity. And for parents, it's an opportunity for your son or daughter to be a little bit closer to home, than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 hours away. So, yeah, we will see. We will see how things kind of transpire in that. I don't know. What do you give it? A handful of years? You give it 5 years, 6 years to kind of feel it out and see where things, a cycle, so to speak, see how things go. I don't know. I've never really lived through this before, so it'll be a first time for us too. But thanks to Mercyhurst, taking a leap of faith, and you know what? It takes stones to do that. That's the only word I could say that wasn't offensive to most. So it takes stones to take a leap of faith, and for most that do it, I'm gonna applaud them and just say, go for it. And to leave it all out there, it's impressive. And to be an institution and do that with a lot of history, it's even more impressive. So congratulations, Mercyhurst. Kudos to Mercyhurst, and good luck. Godspeed. That is going to do it for our show today. I want to thank everybody. Ty Bartel for jumping on. I want to thank the WWE. I want to thank Paul Triple H Levesque. I want to thank and put all those wrestling fans and the kids that were and are made fun of for watching professional wrestling on a Monday or a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, and let them know that your time is now. Just like John Cena says, right? It's wrestling's back. I'm excited, more probably excited than I should be, but as a 39-year-old and someone who has loved wrestling his entire life and has built a lot of what I have before me, built my kingdom, so to speak, on what I've learned in professional wrestling and the hard work that goes along with it, and believing in yourself and all that, saying my prayers, training and eating my vitamins, all of that stuff. I'm so happy to have it back. So hope you are part of that. And if you're not too late to join, there's a little bit of a show, the longest running episodic show tonight. It's called Monday Night Raw, and I hope you're able to watch it because it's going to be a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll recap, I'm sure, all that stuff. I'll still be hyped up and hopefully get some gains in today. In the eclipse, watch your eyes, folks. Watch your eyes. Just don't burn your eyes on the solar eclipse. We love you. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 3 to 4, right here on the YSN Power Hour. Peace. YSN thanks you for watching.